welcome in NHL Network insider Elliotte Friedman for the latest on this developing news story. Elliotte, I guess, the question becomes, what happens from here?
Well, we got the first piece of that puzzle earlier today, Jackie. The NHL indicated that they didn't see a scenario where they thought the Coyotes would be playing elsewhere next season, and the Coyotes confirmed that. So we believe that barring a significant change that comes out of nowhere, that the Coyotes will play again next year at Mullet Arena at Arizona State. And then we'll see where this goes. Now, there also have been some rumblings that there is potentially another path in Arizona. I think a lot of us are kind of looking into what that could be. One of them would potentially be the Phoenix Suns. They have a new owner, Matt Ishbia, and I have no doubt that the league and the Coyotes are going to reach out to him and see. Like right now, he's the prime tenant in the Suns arena, the Footprint Center, and I believe there is an agreement there that nobody can go in there without the Suns' consent. So they would have to reach out to him, see if he'd be willing, but there's also a bit of an issue with that because the Footprint Center would have to be retrofitted for hockey, and that's something that might take a couple of years. I looked into this last year when we were uncertain about the Coyotes' future, and I was told it was a few $100 million project and it might take 2 summers to do. So first of all, you'd have to be knowing that the Suns would be willing to do that. And secondly, you'd have to be willing to wait and get that done. So I do think that's going to be part of this, is asking if there is any will. There are also some rumors today that maybe there's another piece of land the Coyotes could chase after. I don't really know if anybody wants to go through this process again, particularly if it would need a vote. I've been told that if they were talking about Mesa, for example, that probably would need a vote. And I don't know if anybody wants to go through this again, and it's going to be a long process. So I think we're all trying to figure out exactly what this means. But the one thing we do seem to know today, Jackie, is that the Coyotes are going to play in the same arena next year that they did last year. I don't think that's going to make a lot of people very happy. But if there's one thing we've learned right now, it's that the NHL is not giving up on this market, a very big southwestern U.S. market, until all avenues are exhausted, even after we thought they were exhausted.
Elliotte, just wanted to jump in. I mean, the good news, at least in terms of the Phoenix Suns, is that they do have a new owner. So, I mean, the previous ownership had no desire to help or be involved with the Coyotes in any way, shape, or form. So a new owner, that might change. But in terms of maybe exhausting all avenues, I mean, are you hearing about any other cities that might be, if it doesn't happen and you have to start thinking about relocating?
Yeah, there's a lot. EJ, one of the things is when the Atlanta Thrashers finally ran their course, they knew that if they went to Winnipeg, they'd have guaranteed sellouts immediately. And that was one where they announced it on May 31st of 2011, the day before the Stanley Cup final began. And that was a ready-made situation where you knew you had sellouts coming. Now, where do you look at in this situation and say, okay, we have guaranteed sellouts coming? Now, as a Canadian, I would say Quebec City right there, and the Ramparts in the Quebec Major Junior League are selling 18,000 tickets, and they're having a pretty good playoff run. I just don't know if that's at all a likely scenario here, and the reason is because of the balance. I don't know that they want to put Arizona in the Eastern Conference. And number two, I've always wondered exactly what the NHL thinks the return of the Quebec Nordiques would do to the business of the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know if that is at all a reasonable situation. I think, again, I think they would like to save Arizona if they can. But barring that, I think you're going to be looking at a market somewhere in that western side or close to the west of the United States. Now, Utah, I've written about this about a month ago. Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, after the NBA Board of Governors meeting in New York, met with the commissioner. I think the league is very interested in Utah, and I think Utah is very interested in the NHL. But they don't have an arena for hockey right now, and they probably won't get it till if they find out they get the Winter Olympics in either 2030 or 2034. So Salt Lake City, I think, is on the radar. Kansas City, Houston, although in the past they've been concerned about the Rockets owners' real true interest in the NHL. Um, I think Vivek Ranadive going to in Ottawa has led us to wonder a little bit about Sacramento. I think there's Oklahoma City. I think there's Kansas City. So I think there's a few different options here, but I think they all have to be explored, and none of them are as ready-made as Winnipeg was in 2011, which is why I think you're going to see the Coyotes play here for another year.
All right, so what we do know is that arena project in Tempe has been rejected by voters, seemingly leaving us, Elliotte, with more questions than solid answers. Thank you for the insight. We appreciate the time.
All right, Jackie, I'm jealous you're in the arena. See you next round.